Hey guys, today I'll show you a fantasy thriller TV series named Lucifer, Season 1. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The drama begins long ago when the angel Lucifer was cast out of heaven, condemned to rule hell for all eternity. This lord of hell, known as Satan, remained in his infernal realm, tirelessly torturing sinners. That is until he decided to take a break in Los Angeles and became the owner of a bar called Lux. This human form Lucifer, a dashing and towering figure, drove around town in a fancy car, music blaring. Even when pulled over by cops, he could charm his way out or bribe his way through, always managing to slip away. The Lux Bar was a hive of activity, a chaotic hub for all manner of debauchery. Lucifer wasn't alone on this earthly venture, however. His faithful protector and punisher, Maze, was right there with him, now just the bartender at Lux. Maze had expected Lucifer to stir up trouble on Earth, but he was merely vacationing. While she sulked about this, heaven sent the angel Amina Deal to coax Lucifer back to hell to manage the demons and damned souls properly. Lucifer was too busy enjoying earthly pleasures to give it a thought. Moreover, after being the villain for so long, he pondered and asked the fool Amenadiel if he became Satan because he was inherently evil, or if it was just Father God's decision. Lucifer's heart was heavy even after Amenadiel's departure. He was so handsome, like a beacon of light, yet his father had doomed him to govern hell where the monstrous figures resided. He declared to refuse to take his hell deputy, but before dwelling in sadness for long, then out of the blue, the famous singer Delilah sought him out. Delilah had been a mainstay at the bar, and Lucifer, recognizing her potential, introduced her to a skeevy music producer. Her rise to fame was meteoric, but her life soon turned chaotic with substance abuse, risque behavior, and an on-and-off affair with the sleazy producer, including a jilted wedding. Scandal seemed to follow her, and at the recent Grammy Awards, the producer tried to rekindle their hormone ship. Now Delilah was crushed upon hearing the producer planned to marry a supermodel that very weekend. She felt like a complete failure, questioning if she'd inadvertently made a pact with the devil. Hearing her claim, Lucifer found the notion amusing because her flirtatious soul and smelly body were not of interest to Satan himself. Her missteps were her own doing. Not wanting to see Delilah lose herself to despair, Lucifer, the very person who had kick-started her career, earnestly encouraged her to pick herself up. Taking his words to heart, Delilah promised to turn her life around. But in a tragic twist of fate, she was shot dead as shit the very next moment. Enraged by the loss, Lucifer vowed to find the culprit. However, the murderer's escape was cut short by a car accident, and Lucifer confronted the dying hitman, who couldn't reveal his boss's identity before succumbing to his injuries. The Los Angeles police swiftly took control of the scene, and FBI officer Chloe made her entrance. She was in the midst of an argument with her colleague, Officer Dan. The dead perpetrator on the scene was a low-level drug dealer, and there were drugs in Delilah's bag. Dan was convinced that Delilah owed the dealer money. It's likely that their negotiation broke down and thus ended up with a violent crime. Chloe, however, noticed something unusual about the gold watch on the drug dealer's wrist. She questioned a witness, Lucifer, learning that the dealer was simply carrying out a paid job. The dealer had opened fire, but why Delilah was targeted only while Lucifer was unharmed? That question piqued Chloe's curiosity. Lucifer confessed that he is actually Satan and remarked that Chloe looked familiar to him. Chloe took this as a mere flirtation tactic from Lucifer and ignored it, but warned him that the case was closed. Lucifer decided to find the culprit himself, suspecting the producer first, since Delilah had repeatedly disrespected him. Lucifer crashed the producer's private wedding, where the producer was afraid of Lucifer and wouldn't meet his eyes, insisting he was not the murderer. He suggested a new suspect, a rapper who Delilah had dumped for. It was rumored that the rapper had slapped Delilah and was accompanied by armed individuals, making him a likely suspect. Though the producer provided a lead, Lucifer didn't miss the chance to annoy him. He coaxed the bride to reveal that she slept and married this old guy just for his money. Lucifer hurried to the rapper's house, hanging him upside down with one hand. The rapper quickly gave up a new clue. Delilah was having an affair with a married superstar, but only Linda, the Beverly Hills therapist, knew who it was. He knew Delilah visited Dr. Linda under a pseudonym at least 5 times a week. Before Lucifer could leave, Officer Chloe burst in. She had also found the rapper, whose companions recognized Chloe. Lucifer remembered that she had been the leading lady in a softcore film with a notorious nude swimming pool scene, a definite black mark on Chloe's past. Lucifer's private investigation annoyed Chloe, and it's because he incessantly brought up Chloe's past, which led to her handcuffing him. But handcuffs can't hold someone like Lucifer. He demonstrated his ability to Chloe, claiming he had the power to draw out people's most forbidden desires. However, Chloe didn't buy his smelly bullshit, as Lucifer couldn't make her disclose any desires while staring at her eyes. Seeing that Lucifer could still be useful, Chloe decided to take him along to see Dr. Linda. However, they changed their direction midway because Chloe's daughter, Trixie, got into a fight at school and the parents were called in. Despite Lucifer claiming he dislikes children, he actually got on quite well with Trixie. To his surprise, he discovered that Officer Dan is actually Chloe's ex-husband. After sorting out Trixie's issue, Chloe took Lucifer to see Dr. Linda. Using his flirtatious abilities, Lucifer successfully made the doctor reveal the married superstar who might be involved in Delilah's death. The superstar thought his affair with Delilah was well concealed, but his wife had discovered his infidelity long ago. The superstar wore a gold watch, identical to the one on the wrist of the drug dealer killer, leading to his swift arrest for questioning. Chloe still felt something was off, so they went over the case at the bar. The news was reporting on Delilah's posthumous album sales surge. Chloe realized that the gold watch might have been a common gift Delilah gave to lovers. The one found on the drug dealer could very well have been payment for the hit. After Delilah's death, the one who stood to gain the most was the producer, profiting from the album rights. When the producer's scheme was exposed, he took hostages in a furious rage, threatening Chloe and Lucifer. Lucifer mocked the producer, who was agitated, about to shoot. Chloe shot him first, but the culprit was not dealt with that easily. The producer returned fire at Chloe and even tried to shoot Lucifer, who is immortal. Lucifer was infuriated, vowing he would make him wish he was dead. Chloe didn't see the producer's fate as she lost consciousness. When she woke up, she was in the hospital. Lucifer enjoyed solving cases with Chloe and sincerely expressed his desire to continue being her investigation partner. Chloe smiled and refused. Back at the Lux bar, Amenadiel confronted Lucifer at the door, chiding him for showing mercy to humans and insisting he should return to hell. Lucifer refused him firmly. As a devil who would claim human souls, Lucifer chose to save Chloe's life instead, but he didn't even understand why he did it at that time. To figure that out, he decided to see Dr. Linda, who had a one-night stand with him. Lucifer quickly became a regular patient of Dr. Linda. He wouldn't admit to being kind or humane towards humans. To prove he was still very evil, he scared a scammer pretending to be a priest on the street. Even though Lucifer confessed his identity as the devil from hell to Dr. Linda, she took it as a metaphor the patient used to describe his issues without suspicion, or perhaps she cleverly chose not to overthink it. In Dr. Linda's eyes, Lucifer was uneasy, afraid he was changing. Lucifer returned to the Lux bar. Chloe observed him covertly from a corner, having miraculously survived a gunshot. Naturally, she was confused. After looking into Lucifer's background, she found that he had appeared out of nowhere 5 years ago. Her detective instincts kicked in, determined to uncover the secrets of this mysterious man. Lucifer was aware of Chloe's sneaky behavior, but didn't mind her getting close. When she sat next to him, he charmed her once more. Yet, his tell-the-truth power still didn't work on her. Chloe had to leave for a case involving the son of a movie star who had died in a car crash while trying to evade paparazzi. Officer Dan took over the case, using Chloe's supposed vacation as a reason to ask her to step back, but she insisted on staying. Lucifer followed, sensing her emotional turmoil towards the paparazzo responsible for the accident. It turns out, Chloe had been harassed by this paparazzo after an incident in one of her films. Now, as she watched him being taken away, she feared he might find a way to escape justice. Surprisingly, the paparazzo didn't resist and readily confessed, which should have made things easier, but Chloe sensed something was off. When Lucifer tried to use his power to get the truth out of the paparazzo, Dan interrupted. Still, a piece of truth slipped out. The paparazzo was taking the fall for someone else. Lucifer was keen to help Chloe with the investigation, but she was reluctant to involve him, especially after he smoked evidence at the crime scene. Lucifer didn't insist and went home to engage in a threesome hormone yoga session, showcasing his devil-may-care lifestyle. Early the next morning, Lucifer was once again confronted with Amenadiel's request for him to return to hell. He mentioned once more that Lucifer was beginning to show signs of humanity due to Chloe's influence, which he didn't see as a good thing. Lucifer told Amenadiel to get lost with his bullshit, but the influence was undeniable. He was genuinely intrigued by Chloe and pondered how one could truly study a person. The answer is to stick to her like a plaster and get to know her inside out. True to his word, Lucifer rushed over to Chloe's place to offer his help with the case. Chloe's daughter, Trixie, adored Lucifer, though he had no clue how to handle children. Chloe couldn't care less. She was too busy dealing with the case. As the daughter of a famous actress from the 80s, she could relate deeply to the sentiments of the son of the movie star. Despite Chloe's past issues with the paparazzo involved in the accident, she was determined to clear his name. However, she wasn't about to let Lucifer follow her and forced him out. Since they couldn't get anything substantial directly from the people involved, Lucifer decided to take an indirect approach. He sought out the paparazzo to dig up information on Chloe's past. It's revealed that 2 weeks after the release of Chloe's movie, her father had passed away, and the paparazzo had intruded into the funeral to snap photos, which he later sold for a hefty sum after being thrashed by Chloe. Initially eager to delve into Chloe's dark past, Lucifer was struck by the seriousness of the affair and mentally sentenced the paparazzo to torturous punishment. The paparazzo deeply regretted his actions since that day and had been seeking redemption, but he kept the identity of the real culprit to himself. Meanwhile, Chloe was onto something. She had reached out to the movie star, learning that his son had always felt like someone was following him. Before she could probe further, she found out Lucifer had been questioning the paparazzo privately. As Lucifer agonized over his guilt for prying into Chloe's private life, Maze mocked him for changing. At that moment, Chloe burst into the bar, convinced that Lucifer must have discovered something significant. Indeed, the paparazzo was protecting another journalist, likely his protege. With this new lead, Chloe and Lucifer quickly headed to the paparazzi hotspot and discovered that the protege journalist had also been at the crime scene. As Chloe approached, he blew her cover, revealing her identity as the daughter of a famous movie star and her past involvement in an adult film. The other paparazzi swarmed around Chloe, looking to scoop a big story. Lucifer fiercely taught the most obnoxious one a lesson. By the time they broke free from the mob, the protege journalist had already made a run for it. The next day, Chloe made the news headlines. Her ex-husband Dan suggested that she should come clean to their daughter Trixie about her dark past, so she could be prepared to face any comments from her classmates at school. Chloe hesitated, opting to focus on the case at hand instead. She and Lucifer quickly caught up with the protege journalist. Many of the celebrity stories he had broken seemed premeditated. The movie star's son's death looked like it might have been a deliberate car crash gone wrong, where he inadvertently implicated himself. To escape the blame, he tried to pin the crime on his mentor, the paparazzo. Chloe was intent on finding evidence to pin it on the protege journalist and to make the paparazzo tell the truth. Lucifer, however, was no longer concerned about following the rules. He decided to punish the wrongdoer in his own way. He orchestrated a face-off between the paparazzo and his protege, giving each a gun. When the protege journalist didn't hesitate to shoot, of course, the gun was unloaded, a devilish prank from Lucifer. The paparazzo had taken the fall for his protege, believing he could redeem himself, but he never expected such cold-hearted ruthlessness. At the crucial moment, Chloe intervened, urging the paparazzo not to act rashly. Just as the paparazzo was about to shoot, Lucifer summoned Amenadiel, who kicked away the bullet and slowed time, preventing a potential murder. After Amenadiel left and time returned to normal, Chloe was surprised to find Lucifer suddenly right beside her. The case was resolved, but Chloe's curiosity about Lucifer's peculiarities only grew. Back home, Chloe confessed to her daughter about her past in adult films. To her surprise, Trixie already knew and had even seen the movie. In the age of the internet, these things hardly stayed hidden, yet Trixie wasn't bothered at all. Later, Lucifer sought therapy with Dr. Linda, admitting he's changed, but he was no longer afraid or uneasy. He was just considering how to deal with the person who had caused these changes in him. Meanwhile, Chloe visited the producer in the mental hospital to find out what exactly Lucifer had done to him. The man screamed in a chicken voice that Lucifer was the devil taking a vacation on Earth. The scene then shifts to Lucifer, who stands aloft, coaxing a sexy woman to just jump already. It's said that Satan takes great pleasure in tempting humans to take their own lives, for their souls then fall into hell. But the next second, the sexy woman leaps into a swimming pool. It turns out to be a wild party. The host of the party is Ty, the recent star football player. He's the rookie of the season and hugely popular. One would think he'd be quite the playboy, but in reality, he's still a virgin. In the temptation-filled Los Angeles, that's quite a wonder. Ty even plans to save his virginity for marriage, but alas, he recently broke up with his girlfriend, and his chances of walking down the aisle have gone down the drain. Ty's agent thinks he's too tense and throws a party to help him unwind his wild hormones. Lucifer, always eager to help, hears about Ty's predicament. He asked him what he desired. Under his influence, Ty confessed that he really wanted to lose his virginity. That's child's play for Lucifer. He then showed Ty the red-dressed beauty over there and urged him to take a try. Ty lifts his drink, musters his courage, and walks towards the lady in red, feeling like he's done a good deed. Lucifer then moves on to flirt with the beauty who was about to dive. However, when he introduces himself as the owner of the Lux bar, she's unimpressed. She's met the real owner of Lux, and she's not buying his act. Lucifer frowns, but before he can figure out what's going on, 3 beauties send flirtatious glances his way. Lucifer then spends the hormone night surrounded by the 3 women, only to be woken up at dawn by a panicked Ty pleading for his help. The scene changes. After the last paparazzi showdown where Lucifer teleported in a blink, Chloe didn't believe he was a demon. She thought it must be some kind of hypnotism. Soon she received a call from Lucifer, a number she had never given him. Rushing over to Ty's place, Chloe found the body of a woman in red floating in the pool. This was the trouble Ty had encountered. Chloe immediately called the police. The marks on the body suggested that the woman had been murdered. No wonder Ty had sought Lucifer's help upon finding a dead body first thing in the morning. Ty only knew the woman in red was a call girl and nothing more. With a total of more than 200 party guests, it was quite the auspicious number for the police who now had their work cut out for them. Lucifer kept going on and on with his theories about the killer until Chloe kicked him out, telling him not to bother her unless he had useful evidence. Chloe lived up to her badge, finding the call girl's purse amidst a pile of clutter and identifying her. The call girl lived quite a distance away, and her reason for coming was unclear. The police found some hormone traces of the call girl in Ty's bedroom, while Lucifer found her phone with an intimate video of her and Ty. Clearly, the call girl had been recording secretly, and Ty had caught her. Chloe was convinced Ty was the murderer, having killed the call girl in a panic over the sex tape. Lucifer, however, didn't believe Ty was the killer, and wanted to help prove his innocence by looking into other information on the call girl's phone. Chloe shooed him away again, telling him not to interfere with the investigation. But then, following Lucifer's hint, she covertly checked Ty's phone. Lucifer stormed back to the Lux bar, fuming, when Maze hit him with even more explosive news, saying that someone had been impersonating him, racking up a $2,000 dine-and-dash bill at a shop and trashing a budget honeymoon suite, all using Lucifer's name and credit card. Lucifer was livid, ordering Maze to teach the imposter a lesson, but Maze wasn't about to comply. Instead, she relished the opportunity to mock Lucifer. Since he refused to return to hell and found humans fascinating, she quipped that this was all part of the experience. Unable to boss Maze around, Lucifer was left to vent to Dr. Linda. Dr. Linda quickly realized that Lucifer's rage wasn't just about the imposter, it was compounded by Chloe's rejection and exclusion from the case. Her therapeutic guidance soon cooled his temper. She told him that he could figure out a way to clear Ty's name on his own. So, by the time Chloe got to Ty's talent agency, Lucifer had already charmed his way into the good graces of the star agents there. Chloe, unable to do much about him, grudgingly agreed to let him tag along on the investigation. It was, after all, better than him sneaking around and causing trouble. Indeed, the call girl's phone held more secrets. She had been in contact with Ty's agent, Joe. Lucifer wasted no time employing his desire-exposing magic. Joe said he wanted to be the best agent and protect his clients. Chloe quickly caught on to Joe's protective stance over Ty. To protect Ty meant to tell the truth. Joe caved, confessing he hired the call girl to have sex with Ty after a rough breakup with his girlfriend, which had left him in bad shape. Joe figured that the best way to get Ty back on track was to have him forget his ex. In Joe's eyes, Ty's ex-girlfriend was a controlling and hot-tempered superfan who couldn't stand anyone else getting close to Ty. For the sake of Ty's future, Joe had forced their breakup and even pressured Ty into filing a restraining order against her. If anyone had a motive to kill out of jealousy over the call girl getting close to Ty, it would be the ex-girlfriend. Chloe and Lucifer found Ty's ex-girlfriend. Before they could ask her any questions, her car exploded. It appeared someone was sending her a warning. Shaken by the explosion, the ex-girlfriend spilled everything to the police without reservation. She had gone to Ty's place on the night of the party and saw him kissing the call girl, which made her leave in tears. During the time the call girl was killed, the ex-girlfriend had been in an ice cream shop, crying and eating ice cream for a full 3 hours. The case of the call girl's death had hit a dead end until Officer Dan brought a new angle into the investigation. The explosion was likely a warning from the infamous Hollywood trouble fixer, whom the police had been trying to catch for a long time. Catching her would likely lead to whoever wanted to warn the ex-girlfriend, and that person might be connected to the call girl's death. The trouble fixer was very cautious, making it difficult for anyone to get close to her. Chloe thought of asking Lucifer for help. Dan would pretend to be a Hollywood celebrity with Lucifer vouching for him, requesting the trouble fixer's services to handle a problem. When the deal was done, they planned to catch her red-handed. The plan was perfect until the trouble fixer became aware of the recent troubles Lucifer had faced with an imposter. Lucifer, reminded of this, was initially eager to have the imposter punished, as he had tarnished Lucifer's reputation and complicated his love life. Maze was excited at the prospect of punishment and looked forward to Lucifer taking matters into his own hands as they used to in hell. However, Lucifer calmed down, recalling Dr. Linda's advice that he was displacing his anger onto the imposter, who wasn't worth his time. So he let the imposter go, much to Maze's annoyance. Just as the trouble fixer received her payment from Lucifer, Chloe's team arrested her. It turned out that the call girl was one of her operatives. Agent Joe had enlisted the trouble fixer to seduce Ty and record a sex tape to hand over to him. Joe also informed the trouble fixer that it was Ty's ex-girlfriend who killed the call girl. The previous explosion was the trouble fixer's attempt to seek revenge for the call girl. With this revelation, it became clear that the mastermind behind everything was Agent Joe, who was trying to control his cash cow, Ty. But this was just speculation without evidence. By then, Joe had already bailed Ty out, allowing him to continue attracting sponsors. Lucifer and Chloe played a clever act, pretending to take Ty into custody. Joe, desperate to protect his golden goose, slipped up. It's then revealed that after the hormone yoga session with Ty, the call girl had realized he was a good person and didn't want to give the sex tape to Joe. During their argument, Joe killed the call girl. Even after confessing to the crime, Joe was dismissive about the call girl's death, claiming it was just an accident from being too forceful. Lucifer was enraged and, with a light push, sent Joe crashing through a glass window. Chloe was stunned by the turn of events and stopped Lucifer from going any further, handing Joe over to the police. Ty lost a bad agent but got back together with his ex-girlfriend, who, despite being a crazy fan, was the one he couldn't resist. Lucifer smugly sought praise from Chloe for his role in clearing Ty's name and seeking justice for the call girl, but Chloe was not quick to indulge him. She was curious why Lucifer was so determined to vindicate Ty and get justice for the call girl. Lucifer himself couldn't make sense of his recent changes, so he went to see Dr. Linda. After paying his therapy fee, he got her full attention, and she concluded that Lucifer wanted to change. He wasn't just interested in punishing the bad guys like before, he was also learning to seek justice for the good ones. Lucifer wouldn't admit it, while Chloe vented her frustration at home, alone, watching the surveillance footage of her teaching Joe a lesson, growing uncertain about Lucifer's true nature. Chloe's struggle with understanding who Lucifer really is was constant, plaguing her thoughts even in the shower. Within that short period, Lucifer had managed to enter her home illegally, cheerfully making breakfast. Chloe, thinking an intruder had entered, rushed out wrapped only in a towel, which promptly fell when she realized it was Lucifer, giving him an eyeful. Just as she was about to kick him out, her ex-husband Dan arrived, returning their daughter. The ever-curious Trixie asked if they had spent the night together. Lucifer was swept out of the door by Chloe, marking the second time he faced such an eviction, which led him straight to Dr. Linda's office to complain. But with Dr. Linda occupied with another patient, Lucifer had to wait. Dan was clearly disappointed at the possibility of Chloe being involved with this strange man. He didn't get a break from his job as a cop. Right after dropping off Trixie, he brought in a case. A girl named Lindsay had disappeared while working as a waitress at a gamer club event known for teaching nerds how to pick up girls and deceive them into bed. Lindsay had been in contact with a pickup artist, the sleazy founder of the club, who was not easy to approach since the club wasn't open to the public. To get close to the pickup artist, Chloe needed to go undercover, which meant reluctantly asking for Lucifer's help, as he was the only one who could get on the membership list. At that moment, Lucifer was venting to Dr. Linda about someone being immune to his magic and charm, which he found outrageous, as he considered himself highly charismatic. Dr. Linda urged him to keep a level head and suggested that getting to know the real Chloe might help him lose interest, but her advice went over his head, as Lucifer was stuck in his own understanding. Chloe showed up with a request, and Lucifer agreed without hesitation, proclaiming that she would fall in bed with him. Chloe was so furious she could have sworn 100 times over that it would never happen. Lucifer took her reaction as playing hard to get. Later, when they both infiltrated the club's seminar, they unexpectedly ran into Lindsay's brother, who demanded that the pickup artist take responsibility. He was stopped by a burly security guard, whom Chloe calmed down while Lucifer took the opportunity to use his desire-revealing powers on the guard. Lucifer asked him, amidst all the lovely ladies, which one he desired, to which the guard confessed he was gay. After dismissing the security guard, the seminar officially began. Accompanied by cool lighting effects, the pickup artist took the stage to begin his speech. It was so absurd and idiotic, yet each session was selling for $5,000. Seeing the pickup artist so confident, Lucifer raised his hand to ask if he could teach these homebodies to score with girls, then tell him how he could sleep with this lady cop. Barely a minute into the event, Chloe's undercover identity was shockingly exposed. The pickup artist immediately called security to throw them both out. Chloe had no choice but to apologize to her superior, while Lucifer was still fixated on why he couldn't get Chloe into bed. To redeem themselves, Chloe had a bright idea. The pickup artist would later host an after-party, and if Lucifer was willing to lend out his bar for free to host the party, they could lure the pickup artist there. Lucifer happily agreed, first taking Chloe back to his place. To make up for the morning's offense of seeing her naked, Lucifer also stripped down, showing off his abs and hormone weapon. His physique was indeed impressive. Lucifer turned to show his muscles off, and Chloe noticed 2 scars on his back. Lucifer casually mentioned they were from cutting off his wings. When Chloe tried to touch them, he still couldn't bear it and pulled away, as if that area were his Achilles heel. Chloe rarely saw Lucifer lose composure, and they agreed to skip over this part. At the after-party, the pickup artist realized Chloe was panicked, even pulling out a gun trying to escape, but was quickly subdued. The pickup artist wasn't the kidnapper. In fact, he and Lindsay were lovers. He revealed that the kidnapper had warned him not to call the police, to prepare the ransom for her release. To verify the pickup artist's story, Lucifer used his power, confirming he was telling the truth. When faced with true love, the pickup artist surrendered, ditching the tricks completely. Lucifer found humans truly fascinating, so he decided to pay the ransom himself to rescue Lindsay. Chloe was worried about Lucifer's safety. The kidnapper might have a gun. Lucifer boasted that he was immortal after all. Before the agreed time, the pickup artist also arrived. Lucifer locked Chloe out of the exchange site, following the pickup artist into the factory himself, only to discover the kidnapping had another twist. The so-called kidnapper was Lindsay's brother. It was all Lindsay's own plot. 2 years ago, the pickup artist had tricked Lindsay into bed and then vanished without a trace. 2 years later, Lindsay found the pickup artist, who didn't remember her at all. So Lindsay pretended to date the pickup artist, planning the kidnapping after he fell for her, hoping to make the pickup artist pay and possibly get rid of him. Lucifer wasn't having it. The pickup artist was scum, but his fate at most would be riddled with STDs. Death punishment was too harsh. Lindsay was no better. 2 wrongs don't make a right. So he decided to teach these people a proper lesson in punishment. At the critical moment, Chloe burst in just in time to see the reflection of Lucifer's demonic face on the glass. She's shocked and eager to understand who this man truly was. It presented a perfect opportunity for Lucifer. He rambled on and on, urging Chloe to shoot him, to witness his so-called indestructibility. In her panic, Chloe pulled the trigger, and the bullet grazed past Lucifer's leg. Lucifer proclaimed it didn't even hurt, but then he broke into tears as blood began to flow from his wound. Chloe snapped back to reality, realizing that the man before her, who now cried out like a giant baby in pain, was nothing more than a mortal human. She had almost been deceived. Chloe's fellow officers quickly arrived at the scene. Lucifer used his charm to smooth things over with Chloe's superior, covering up the incident of Chloe accidentally shooting an innocent bystander. Lucifer was wounded and returned to the Lux Bar, which alarmed Maze. She urged Lucifer to return to hell, especially since it had not been long since Amenadiel had visited Maze, seeking Lucifer's vulnerability in hopes of finding an opportunity to bring him back to hell. Maze had teased Amenadiel, and he had nearly lost control. However, Maze rejected his request. Now, with Lucifer injured and back, Maze couldn't stay calm, yet Lucifer himself was indifferent, even finding the situation intriguing. The idea that his immortal body could be harmed was a novel experience. Lucifer continued to be active around Chloe, resolved to seduce her, thinking it would lessen his interest in this peculiar woman. The scene shifts to Lucifer, bringing Maze to a press conference where the models were wearing so little that one might think this was avant-garde taste from the designer, Benny. Maze was speechless because Benny was selling shoes, not clothes. However, Maze was still worried about Lucifer. Him getting hurt was definitely not a good thing. Lucifer was carefree to the extreme, musing that dying would be a wonderful experience. But right now, he had no interest in discussing that. His focus was on the stunning models. He had just slipped backstage to reveal the models' true desires, and the two began to wrestle their juicy tongues. Before Lucifer could fully engage with the model, a shooting occurred at the press conference, causing everyone to scatter in panic. Maze, concerned for Lucifer's safety, forcibly took him away. A girl was fatally shot at the press conference. The case was quickly handed over to the Los Angeles Police Department, and naturally, it fell into Chloe's hands in the homicide division. The current theory was that the shooter was after the designer, Benny, and the girl was just an innocent bystander caught in the crossfire. Unfortunately, Benny was uncooperative with the police. Chloe's ex, Dan, was not too keen on her handling this case, especially since ever since Lucifer appeared, there always seemed to be someone getting shot in the cases Chloe dealt with. Chloe had just assured everyone that she would absolutely not involve Lucifer this time, only to be contradicted immediately. Lucifer was already wandering around the police station. He used his power to reveal true desires on the superior, who wished to become the first female police chief and needed to crack a major case while garnering support from minority communities. Lucifer promised her that if she allowed him to assist with the police department's cases, he would find a way to help fulfill her desire. With some negotiation, Lucifer successfully positioned himself as a civilian consultant to the police, officially assigned to help Chloe investigate the press conference shooting. With official permission, Lucifer was now hovering around Chloe, boastfully seizing the opportunity. He kept going on and on about how thrilling it was to investigate cases, seeking excitement. But Chloe satisfied him with a slap across the face. But Lucifer asked for one more slap, which probably means he's a bit of a masochist. The police couldn't pry information from Benny, but that didn't mean Lucifer couldn't. Initially, Lucifer had helped Benny with his first trendy shoe show. Since then, Benny's designs have had smooth sailing. Benny was always accompanied by a pet pig and an assistant with a Marine Corps tattoo on his arm, which Lucifer mistook for a love mom tattoo. With Lucifer's support, Benny quickly divulged everything he knew to Chloe. Before he became famous, he had associations with Asian gangsters. His assistant had a conflict with the Latin Kings gang before the press conference. The event was full, yet members of the Latin Kings still wanted to force their way in. Benny remained silent in front of the other officers, not wanting to get involved in gang wars. At least now there was a lead on the shooting suspect, likely the Latin Kings who caused trouble that day. In between investigating cases, Lucifer was eager to visit the Fence Bar, a popular hangout for cops. Chloe was hesitant until Lucifer, nursing his injured thigh, lamented that his leg hurt so much, forcing Chloe to agree to go there. At the Fence Bar, the cops unexpectedly showed their cold attitudes towards Chloe. It turns out, during the Palm Street case, an officer named Malcolm had been killed, and while Malcolm's partner deemed it a line-of-duty death, Chloe suspected bribery of Malcolm and reported it, which led to less compensation for the deceased officer. It's this incident that made Chloe an outcast among the cops. Snitches are unwelcome, but when Malcolm's partner insulted Chloe, Lucifer took offense, finding it incredibly rude. Lucifer decided to retaliate, perhaps with a good punch. Chloe quickly dragged Lucifer away. Back at the Lux Bar, Lucifer's new role as a police consultant upset Maze. She was concerned for his safety and disliked the unpredictability of the situation. She warned him that she wouldn't always be there to clean up his messes. Lucifer, confident that Maze would never betray him and would always protect him, unintentionally angered Maze, causing her to storm off. Then Officer Dan arrived. He knew the shooting was gang-related. Lucifer enjoyed the thrill, but Dan didn't want Chloe to be in danger and warned Lucifer to look after her. However, when it came to finding the Latin Kings couple, he revealed the information to Chloe. Chloe didn't appreciate such overprotectiveness. She was an independent police officer who didn't need men to protect her. As Chloe was pondering how to approach the couple for a peaceful inquiry, Lucifer had already climbed through their window. It turns out the couple was not the shooters in the gun case. Instead, the deceased girl at the conference was the male partner's cousin. To seek justice for their cousin, the couple provided a possible lead, a suspect known as Yellow Viper, who had been an artistic graffiti collaborator with Benny. However, Yellow Viper fell from grace after being imprisoned for breaking and entering, while Benny reaped both fame and fortune. Having just been released from prison the previous week, Yellow Viper was a likely candidate for seeking revenge on Benny. Before Chloe and Lucifer could warn Benny, he sent them a message saying someone had shot his pet pig. The scene was gruesome, with pig blood everywhere. Such a brutal method of killing seemed extreme. Chloe contacted Yellow Viper's parole officer and tracked him down at the community center, where he was teaching young people to paint graffiti, appearing calm and nothing like a cold-blooded killer. Before Chloe and Lucifer could withdraw, the couple from the Latin Kings gang arrived with backup, convinced that Yellow Viper was the girl's killer and out for revenge. As a fight was about to break out, Lucifer's verbal antics drew the couple's attention, allowing Yellow Viper and the children to escape under Chloe's cover. As the couple was about to take their anger out on Lucifer, Maze stepped in, single-handedly dealing with the thugs and making a stylish exit. The police soon arrived and took both the members of the Latin Kings gang and Yellow Viper away. A handgun from the shooting was found in Yellow Viper's bag, making it seem like the real culprit was caught. However, Chloe's intuition told her something was off, so Lucifer began using his power, challenge the man's real desire. But Yellow Viper revealed that he just wanted to create art, showing no interest in Benny or in committing murder. They then confronted Benny with Yellow Viper in tow, revealing that during their initial graffiti collaboration, it was Yellow Viper who had the real talent. Benny, concerned that Yellow Viper would steal his limelight after being released from prison, planned to have his assistant open fire during a press conference, which accidentally resulted in the girl's death. To deflect blame, he framed Yellow Viper for the murder. The assistant quickly confessed to being an accomplice, and Benny was swiftly arrested. Through this case, Chloe's superior made headlines and is likely to become the next chief of police. Lucifer also formally became a consultant to the police department, which delighted him. He had a few successful days and also praised Maze for her protection, which she happily accepted. She indeed planned to keep Lucifer out of harm's way, whether he was aware of the danger or not. So after learning that Lucifer might get shot, Maze immediately contacted Amenadiel to tell him that if he wanted to know Lucifer's vulnerability, he should go to Dr. Linda. To extract information from Dr. Linda, Amenadiel disguised himself as the new psychologist next door, becoming her colleague to get on her good side. Meanwhile, Maze quietly checked up on Chloe. Even though this woman had caught Lucifer's attention, she posed no threat. But Chloe was unaware of the demonic presence, feeling only an inexplicable chill. As Lucifer's carefree singing filled the air, a murder took place in a container warehouse. The security guard receiving a delivery was found with his neck snapped. At home, Chloe and Dan were teaching their daughter Trixie a lesson for sneaking cake, her face still smeared with chocolate, naively thinking her parents wouldn't notice. Under Dan's guidance, Trixie admitted her mistake. The two had planned a Tuesday night gathering with their daughter, but Dan's work commitments meant he might not be able to make it, leaving Chloe disappointed for Trixie. Soon after, Chloe received a call about the murder at the warehouse. Over at the Lux bar, Maze brought a pair of twin beauties to cheer up Lucifer, hoping he'd let loose his hormones for a bit. However, Lucifer, addicted to solving cases, couldn't be kept back by the allure of the twins and rushed to the warehouse, thinking it was an exciting case. To his boredom, it turned out to be just an ordinary security guard killed. Lucifer returned to the bar, much to Chloe's annoyance. Then Maze delivered some troubling news that the warehouse murder was linked to Lucifer. Someone had killed the guard and stolen a container that Maze had placed there. Lucifer pretended not to care, but Maze saw through his frustration and urged him to punish the thief who dared cross him. Lucifer just needed that excuse. He went back to the warehouse demanding to join the investigation and confessed that the missing container was his, suggesting that the guard was likely killed by the person who stole it. The warehouse, which stored the containers, specialized in illegal items. Chloe was curious about what was in Lucifer's container, but he remained tight-lipped. Lucifer and Chloe tracked down a warehouse disguised as an ice cream shop, where a hot-tempered smuggler gave him quite a beating. However, Lucifer managed to extract accurate information. The motorcycle club, responsible for overseeing the docks, knew exactly what was inside each container, and they were the only ones who would sell such information. After getting the lead, Lucifer helped himself to some ice cream as a reward. Chloe was far from satisfied with Lucifer's interrogation techniques, which didn't align with police protocol, and it was the first time she saw such an irate side of Lucifer, indicating the contents of the container were of significant importance. Disappointed by his dishonesty, she decided to kick him off the case and instead turned to her ex-husband Dan to investigate the accounts at the Lux bar, suspecting Lucifer was involved in illegal activities. Dan was all too eager to get his hands on evidence against Lucifer. Upon entering the bar, Dan encountered Maze, who upon learning he was there to examine the books, willingly led him to the backyard. With Dan off guard, she knocked him out cold. When he came to, he found himself undressed and lying in Chloe's bed just as she returned home from picking up her daughter from school, complaining on the phone to her mother about Dan's unwillingness to spend time with their daughter. Dan quickly hid in his daughter's room, where Trixie found him and helped him get dressed, keeping it a secret from her mother and negotiating her daily allowance of chocolate and cake. Dan, dressed in a fluffy nightgown, stormed back into the bar, determined to find out why Maze had done this to him. Maze's plan was simple. If Chloe and Dan got back together, Chloe would no longer appear before Lucifer. However, her plan seemed to have failed, and in frustration, she handed over the books for Dan to scrutinize. But for Dan, the accounts were completely in order, with no evidence of financial crimes by Lucifer. Chloe was not discouraged. She went to investigate the motorcycle club and happened to run into Lucifer, who was lying in wait. Lucifer was ousted from the team by Chloe, and feeling disgruntled, went to chat with Dr. Linda. The doctor observed that Lucifer's anxiety over the lost container was actually a way to avoid confronting his true self. Angered by her insight, Lucifer stormed out, only to be followed by Amenadiel, who knocked on the door pretending to discuss a patient's condition with Dr. Linda. In reality, he hinted that since Lucifer truly was Satan, she could use the Bible to persuade and treat him. Later, Lucifer blocked Chloe's path to apologize and ask for her help in finding the lost container. Chloe revealed that the deceased security guard had a cross-shaped mark, identical to the motorcycle club's emblem. As soon as Lucifer entered the club, he started demanding his possessions back, attracting the full enmity of the crowd and drawing out the club's boss. The boss denied any involvement in the warehouse murder, but Lucifer used his power to coax the boss to tell him the truth. It turns out, the boss had decided to lead his gang to go straight, having expressly forbidden them from targeting warehouses and docks again. Chloe showed the boss the photo of the cross mark on the security guard's body, but although he seemed touched, he gave no clues. Lucifer was anxious, but Chloe was confident. She believed the boss must know who stole the container. To maintain his authority, he would surely seek out the suspect on his own. Just as Chloe had predicted, they followed the boss and found the guilty gang member. During the stakeout, Chloe appealed to Lucifer's emotions. She didn't hate working with him, she just wanted him to be honest. Lucifer was moved and promised never to lie to Chloe, although it sounded a bit like a Playboy's line. Chloe seized the moment to ask what was really in the container. Lucifer hesitated, then said it contained Russian nesting dolls. Chloe was unsure whether to believe him. Meanwhile, the gang member had already injured the boss. As Chloe went to help, Lucifer chased the fleeing gang member in his car. The gang member was just hired to steal the container and was shocked and terrified by what he saw inside. An angry Lucifer demanded to know who took the container, even showing a terrifying face while pressing for answers. Unable to withstand the pressure, the gang member jumped to his death. Chloe arrived just in time to see him leap. The warehouse murder case was solved and the container was recovered. Lucifer invited Chloe to open it together, and to their surprise, it indeed contained only a box of Russian nesting dolls. Chloe breathed a sigh of relief, leaving Lucifer to handle the rest. After Chloe left, Lucifer's expression changed. He went to the hidden compartment of the container, only to find that the item which had been stored there was gone. Chloe went home to spend time with her daughter, and her cheerful ex-husband was punctual for the occasion. The three of them had a happy time together. Lucifer sought out Dr. Linda again for counsel. Following Amenadiel's suggestion, Dr. Linda had studied the Bible thoroughly and began to treat Lucifer seriously as Satan, urging him to confront himself and to believe in God's love. Perhaps as a fallen angel, he could be reborn. These words greatly agitated Lucifer. He didn't feel that being exiled to hell and bearing the infamy of Satan was a sign of God's love or need for him. He was fed up with mortals descending to hell and attributing all sin to demonic temptation. Lucifer never actually enticed anyone to commit crimes. Those were human choices. Now he was even more infuriated because the tool for his rebirth had been stolen. Actually, the thing in that container was a pair of pristine wings that he asked Maze to sever for him, an emblem of his angelic identity. The scene shifts to a Lux Bar party where Maze sees a pretty boy, gives him a seductive wave, and hooks him to the private bath upstairs. We expect her to have some eerie fun with the boy, but she ends up just forcing a confession. This marks the fifth smuggler Lucifer has interrogated since his wings went missing, and like the others, this one also claims innocence. But Maze relishes the torture and hopes Lucifer will keep up this indiscriminate questioning, maybe even spice it up with some real torment. But Lucifer can't wait. Hellish methods have failed, so it's time to consult a professional. He heads straight to Chloe's place. Chloe is busy. She mentions the Palm Street case where the corrupt cop, Malcolm, was shot and has been in a deep coma. Now his wife decides to pull the plug, letting him return to dust. As the police prepare for Malcolm's farewell, Chloe continues investigating his corruption case. Without closure, Malcolm's wife and children can't receive any compensation. Dan gives her the files, insisting the case be closed today for better or worse, so everyone can have peace of mind. So Lucifer sees Chloe at her home, poring over crime scene photos, but he wants her to brainstorm a solution to his case deadlock. Chloe suggests that he seek out someone blunt and honest for inspiration. Ironically, Chloe intends to use Lucifer as a tool to break through her own case deadlock first. But in the blink of an eye, Lucifer vanishes. He's off following Chloe's advice, seeking help from Amenadiel. Upon hearing Lucifer's plight, Amenadiel is incredulous. Lucifer can lose his chicken wings as easily as cutting ties, all to avoid God's orders to return to hell. He challenges Lucifer if he just wants to keep the wings as a backup. Lucifer often clamors for freedom and independence, but looks to Amenadiel to clean up his mess. Amenadiel leaves in a huff, telling Lucifer to figure it out himself, leaving Lucifer speechless. Without choice, Lucifer returns to Chloe's home, promising to help her with the Palm Street case if she assists him. Lucifer comes clean about recently finding his shipping container missing his chicken wings. Chloe, of course, doubts Lucifer is telling the whole truth. She wonders if this handsome guy is a cosplay enthusiast or just lost his fried chicken wings from McDonald's. Chloe agrees to issue a warrant to recover his damned wings. This time, it's not about male-female teamwork making the job easier, but rather the sharp policewoman with her two sidekicks, Lucifer and her ex-husband Dan. The trio returns to the original Palm Street shooting scene, where Chloe has Lucifer play the drug lord and Dan reenact Malcolm. They recreate the case events. Chloe had followed Officer Malcolm and seen him involved in a financial transaction with the drug lord. When Malcolm noticed Chloe, he didn't raise the alarm, and in the next second, bullets flew. Once the scene settled, Chloe found the drug lord sent to hell and Malcolm barely alive. Lucifer feels something off, saying if Malcolm took a bribe from the drug lord, a gunfight wouldn't make sense. Chloe suspects there was another person at the scene. Before the three can conclude their discussion, news about Lucifer's wings arrives. Upon seeing the photo, Chloe realizes this guy is seriously looking for his wings. According to the news, a black market auction is about to take place, where the wings will be sold under the guise of a charity event. The FBI plans to raid the auction, and if all goes well, the wings will be confiscated. Provided that Lucifer can prove the lawful origin of the wings, he could reclaim them within 30 days. It looks like relying on the FBI won't work, so Lucifer has to take matters into his own hands. Amenadiel also showed up at the auction, but not to assist Lucifer. He was there to reclaim the wings. If Lucifer didn't want them, then heaven would take them back. To enter the auction, one needed an invitation. Lucifer's attempt to bribe his way in with money was futile, and Amenadiel wasn't allowed to use his divine powers, so they had to resort to human measures. Thus, Lucifer pulled out a demon coin, offering it for sale to gain an audience with the auction's organizer. Lucifer intended to intimidate the organizer into handing over the wings by force, but upon seeing the host of bodyguards and numerous pistols, he chickened out. The memory of being shot by Chloe's gun was still painfully fresh, so both parties compromised, and Lucifer managed to secure 2 spots at the event for himself and Amenadiel. Amenadiel couldn't help but find amusement in the fact that Lucifer was now afraid of guns, being vulnerable during his time amongst mortals. Although the two might backstab each other, it didn't stop them from jointly mocking the counterfeit items at the auction, like the so-called lost shackles of St. Paul that wouldn't fit the big, chubby hands of the guy who was nothing more than a sweet-toothed, sedentary slob. Suddenly, Chloe approached Lucifer. She had sneaked into the venue to warn them that the FBI would raid the place in 5 minutes. It's well known that Chloe is immune to Lucifer's charms and magic, but she appeared to be completely taken by Amenadiel, almost as if she was enchanted by his muscles. The fried chicken wings were about to be presented, but before the bidding could start, the FBI agents burst in. They had to act fast or the chicken wings would be gone for good. In a rare moment, Lucifer pleaded with the annoying Amenadiel, who used his powers to slow down time, and Lucifer rushed to the stage, only to find out the wings were fakes. Chloe pursued the organizer backstage, where she was met with only a wall. The man had vanished. Chloe was baffled. It wasn't magic, though. There was a hidden door. Regardless, Chloe had resolved Lucifer's case, even if by accident, and all she could hope for was that Lucifer would keep his promise of mutual aid by helping her with the Palm Street case. However, Lucifer was consumed with rage at not finding his wings and ended up frustrating Chloe away. He decided to switch back into devil mode to search for his wings. Lucifer found the organizer, and this time he wasn't acting blindly. To create such a convincing fake, the forger must have seen the real thing. From the disappearance of the wings to the auction, there was very little time. It couldn't have gone through multiple buyers. There was only one truth. The real wings were in the hands of the organizer. Lucifer decided to properly punish this thief. The organizer had to reveal the wings were hidden in a shipping container. After that, they found the wings. But the vast wings sprawled on the beach were set ablaze by Lucifer as Amenadiel watched. Amenadiel was speechless and tried to force Lucifer to confront their significance. They symbolized God's expectation of Lucifer to guard hell. But Lucifer was rebellious, saying he was not going to return to hell and didn't want to keep the wings as a burden. He proposed they could enjoy the fried chicken wings together. Amenadiel was furious, but couldn't bring himself to harm Lucifer. No matter what, he would find another way to persuade Lucifer back to hell. Chloe, driven away by Lucifer's actions, joined Officer Dan in gathering evidence. The secret door at the auction inspired her. At the Palm Street case scene, she discovered a hidden tunnel containing a universal key from the police department, a key that Malcolm never lost. This meant that another police officer was definitely at the scene at the time and was likely the one who shot Malcolm. At the farewell ceremony, Chloe announced the withdrawal of Malcolm's case investigation, easing everyone's minds. However, she wouldn't stop looking for the mole in the police department. This time, she'd proceed quietly. Lucifer returned to the Lux bar, burning the wings that once represented honor and praise. It wasn't easy for him, and he was sorry that he couldn't fulfill Maze's wish to return to hell, dragging her along with him on Earth. Maze didn't complain, declaring that she would always follow him, loyal to the death. Maze's loyalty was never in question, but the ways in which she showed her care for Lucifer weren't always to his liking. For instance, she secretly kept one of Lucifer's wing feathers, indicating that she planned to do something with it. Chloe visited Lucifer without any lingering anger, and both seemed to have gotten over the case like a stone lifted from their hearts, ready to continue their detective partnership. Amidst their tender moment, Amenadiel resurrected Malcolm, revealing a new trick up his sleeve. Following his burnt wings, Lucifer threw a birthday party to celebrate his rebirth. Chloe brought her ex-husband Dan to wish him well, presenting him with a bottle of whiskey mixed with cucumber juice, a bizarre birthday tradition from the police. Now an official consultant for the police, Lucifer couldn't refuse such a tradition, and though he struggled, he finished the drink. Chloe gave him a hug before leaving with Dan, leaving Lucifer feeling a bit miffed. It turned out Chloe and Dan were off to another party, Malcolm's recovery celebration, where past grievances were laughed off. Seeking closure, Lucifer apologized to Dr. Linda for his previous rudeness and underwent another session of psychoanalysis. He confessed feeling jealous watching Chloe leave with Dan, but Dr. Linda's affirmation of jealousy didn't sit well with him. Instead, he thought Chloe had an issue, asking Linda to cure Chloe's apparent blindness for rekindling with Dan. As expected, a new case arrived. A psychologist was murdered without any signs of forced entry, and the weapon seemed to be improvised, suggesting it was a crime of passion, likely committed by an acquaintance. This psychologist advocated for infidelity as a therapy to save marriages, a controversial method that surely angered many. His wife, just returned from the neighboring city, was faced with the horror of her husband's death, weeping like a giant baby as her bearded colleague comforted her using his beard but not muscles. The suspect might be one of the psychologist's patients, which required patient confidentiality to be respected. Only another psychologist could review the files, so Lucifer was thrilled to recommend Dr. Linda, giving him a chance to peek as well. Chloe was speechless. Such an appointment required a judge's order, not Lucifer's self-promotion. But Lucifer quickly persuaded the judge to appoint Dr. Linda to review the files and assist with the investigation. However, Dr. Linda maintained her professional ethics, not swayed by Lucifer's charm, and protected her patient's confidentiality. Chloe quickly identified a suspect. His wife had taken a liking to someone else and divorced him due to the psychologist's controversial infidelity therapy. So he had sent the psychologist death threats. However, despite having issued threats, the man bore no grudge because the kind psychologist had treated his emotional issues for free and encouraged him to overcome his life's low points. He no longer harbored any hatred for the psychologist. In fact, he was so distressed by the psychologist's death that he contemplated suicide. Lucifer commented on his failed life and goaded him to jump, but then he decided not to jump. Lucifer was left puzzled by the fickleness of humans. But the man provided a vital clue. The psychologist's wife was actually in town at the time of his death, not in the neighboring city as she claimed. Dr. Linda then remembered a female patient's file that mentioned being stalked by someone whose name was abbreviated, and it matched the psychologist's wife's. Suddenly, Chloe received a call from Dan, who had information about corrupt cops in the force and wanted to meet at her place. Lucifer got mad and insisted Dr. Linda should treat Chloe, which he was sure was a psychological issue. When Chloe got home, she found out the call was a ruse by Malcolm, who explained he was also investigating corrupt cops. The drug lord who died was actually an informant reporting on this issue, which led to the Palm Street case. Chloe didn't fully trust Malcolm, but had her own judgment. She, Lucifer, and Dr. Linda then confronted the psychologist's wife, who admitted she had come back early not to attack her husband, but his mistress. The psychologist's wife learned the truth through her bearded colleague. She didn't mind her husband's therapy methods, but objected to his true love for his patient. The wife had filled her trunk with horse manure, planning to dump it at the mistress's house. Lucifer listened and realized this is all about jealousy. So he decided to investigate the bearded colleague, who is running the psychologist's memorial group. He challenged the bearded guy's jealousy, forcing him to admit that he wanted the psychologist's wife. It turns out the guy was smitten with the psychologist's wife, but she only loved her husband and showed no interest in his shitty hormones, even though the psychologist never turned back from his affair. In a moment of impulse, he killed the psychologist. Lucifer solved the case just by looking for an example of jealousy. The bearded colleague was quickly apprehended by Chloe and the case was solved. The two then began to discuss the Palm Street case. Although Malcolm's confession was dubious, it provided Chloe with a clue. Police partners can share each other's locations, and aside from Chloe, the only person who could see Malcolm's location was his partner, likely the corrupt cop. They hacked into the police department's system to find the partner's location, but when they arrived, they found only the partner's body and a suicide note. Officer Dan couldn't believe Malcolm's partner's death and was visibly upset. Chloe gave him a comforting hug, while Lucifer watched coldly from a distance. Chloe had originally split from Dan because he prioritized his job over family, but lately he'd changed, taking care of their daughter and showing understanding for Chloe. It seemed they might slowly reconcile. They couldn't resist kissing, but Dan still restrained sharing his tongue and left. Suddenly a call came in. Dan stepped away from Chloe to meet with Malcolm alone. It turned out Malcolm had indeed taken a bribe, and his partner was a scapegoat. The corrupt cop who shot Malcolm was surprisingly Dan himself. It seems that Amenadiel must have had ulterior motives for reviving Malcolm. The next day, Lucifer approached Dr. Linda to offer his muscles as a payment for her therapy, which she refused, insisting on a professional doctor-patient relationship before anything else. Lucifer then noticed a new doctor in the office next door and confirmed after inquiring with Dr. Linda that it was Amenadiel, stealing Lucifer's information under her nose. Such an idea was beyond Amenadiel's own devising. Only Maze could have provided him with that channel. So Lucifer stormed back to the Lux bar, ready to cut ties with Maze without listening to her explanation. Lucifer's feelings for Chloe seemed to be a challenging puzzle, not quite like he was ready for a real romance. The scene shifts to a delivery guy holding a stack of pizzas in the elevator, waiting to deliver them to a customer's door, only to be met with a hedonistic party hosted by none other than Lucifer. He enthusiastically invites the delivery guy to join the wild fun in what could be a real-life version of a Tokyo hot party. However, Lucifer himself oddly refrains from participating and can't understand his own feelings, which will surely lead him to seek Dr. Linda's counsel. Dr. Linda asked Lucifer if he was feeling lonely and commented that throwing parties non-stop might be his way of filling an inner void, but Lucifer just denied that. Dr. Linda, accustomed to such rebuttals, suggests Lucifer should make more friends. Now that Maze has cut ties, perhaps he should turn to Chloe. Lucifer can't quite define his relationship with Chloe and decides to return to his bar for now. An unexpected visitor arrived. It's a bald priest who sought Lucifer's help. He wanted Lucifer to facilitate a peaceful negotiation with the director of a youth center to ensure they weren't using the guise of charity to coerce the center's teens into drug trafficking. In particular, he wanted to prevent a boy named Connor from getting involved. Connor became an orphan when he was 6 years old and had been shuffled between various foster homes and even juvenile detention. Yet the priest firmly believed the boy was good at heart. Lucifer didn't buy a word of the priest's story. In his eyes, the priest's interest in a young boy surely meant there was some shady deal between them. It was time to use his famous desire-exposing magic, coaxing him to reveal his own desire. However, the bald priest expressed that his visit to seek Lucifer's assistance was following God's guidance, which only annoyed Lucifer more. So he asked the priest to get lost with his bald head, and he would not take this case. After that, Lucifer turned to Chloe. He wanted to dig up dirt on the bald priest. There must be something he was hiding. He wanted to humiliate the priest because he believed that it was satisfying to expose the spokesmen for God who were not as righteous and moral as they pretended to be. Unfortunately, he couldn't extract any damning information about the priest from the director of the center. It wasn't that the director had fled, he was found dead. A voice changer left at the scene was collected as important evidence. The youth center's counselor told the police that the priest often came to argue with the director. At the time of the incident, the counselor was advising Connor and his friend. Both kids had seen the priest and director arguing that morning before the priest stormed off. Connor didn't believe the priest was capable of the crime, whereas the girl thought it quite possible. Police records showed that in his youth, the priest was no angel. Fighting, drug abuse, and causing trouble were all part of his past, but he hadn't offended anyone for the last 10 years. The director had filed for a restraining order against the priest last week. So, by approaching the director that morning, the priest had already broken the law. The two rushed to the church where Chloe was hell-bent on finding the priest, while Lucifer entered the confessional, eager to delve into the sinful confessions of God's followers. A rich lady who had confessed 3 hours earlier was back again, seeking guidance. She desired an affair with her rich husband's chauffeur, and naturally, Lucifer encouraged her to pursue her true wishes. Chloe interrupted Lucifer's guidance as they had serious business to address with the bald priest. The priest admitted to having fought with the center's director, but denied any involvement in the murder. He claimed he was busy listening to the confession of the rich lady at the time of the crime. Cleared of suspicion, the bald priest agreed to go to the police station to make a statement. As he stepped out of the church, he was shot. The culprit escaped too quickly. Chloe only managed to catch part of the license plate, which she handed over to her colleagues for verification. The bald priest was forced to reveal a recording, a voice-changed call he had received, warning him not to interfere with the drug trafficking. The phone number was traced back to the director's office. The priest had assumed the director was the caller, but now it seemed likely that it was another drug dealer who wanted to take over the director's drug business. The priest knew so much about the inside dealings because Connor had already started trafficking drugs, and he feared that revealing the truth would leave the boy with no way out. Still, he believed Connor could be redeemed. Chloe wanted to take the bald priest to a safe house, but he insisted that the church was his sanctuary until Lucifer offered a new location, the Lux Bar. To welcome the priest, Lucifer threw a clergy party, hoping to reveal the priest's hypocrisy under the cover of his bald head. However, the priest wasn't embarrassed, reminding everyone that in his younger days, he was a rock and roll piano-playing youth. 10 years ago, the priest was in a car accident with a friend's family. The parents died, leaving only their son, Connor. The priest also lost his daughter, and in his deepest despair, turned to God. Lucifer questioned how the priest could worship a god who took his daughter, to which the priest replied that he couldn't explain it, but believing made him feel that his daughter was safe in heaven. The priest took on the responsibility of guiding and caring for Connor, who lost his parents. In some ways, the priest and Lucifer were similar, both experiencing periods of doubt and emptiness. However, the priest had moved past this phase and even teased Lucifer for not being as good at the piano. Lucifer, of course, wouldn't have it. The priest started playing first, with Lucifer joining in, and they couldn't help but play a duet, as if they had found a kindred spirit in one another. Later, they got a lead on the drug dealer. Chloe and Lucifer sought him out, only to find Connor and his friend embroiled in a drug deal. Connor, upon spotting the pair, fired his gun into the air. The police colleagues relayed that surveillance footage captured Connor shooting the priest. Despite the evidence, the bald priest refused to believe Connor was the drug dealer, still convinced he was worth saving, never losing hope because God believes in everyone. Such steadfast faith naturally enraged Lucifer. The priest inquired why he didn't believe in God. Lucifer retorted that it's God who doesn't believe in him. The priest then shared that he once didn't believe either, but now it's clear to him that God has always had a plan for him. Receiving a call from Connor, the priest excused himself from the bar. Chloe and Lucifer followed him to the church, hiding on the side, only to discover that the center's counselor was the exact drug dealer, the one who orchestrated the drug trafficking. It's he who ordered Connor to shoot the priest and murdered the center director. Connor, unable to bring himself to do it, purposely missed. Even at gunpoint, the bald priest kept his belief in Connor, urging him to confess. In the end, Connor couldn't pull the trigger. The counselor drew his gun to kill Connor, but the priest shielded him, and Chloe wounded the counselor. Nevertheless, the priest was shot. Lucifer now saw the priest as a friend, desperately pressing on the wound as life ebbed away. With his dying breath, the priest told Lucifer that God hadn't forsaken him. It was divine guidance that led the priest to Lucifer, and that God always had a plan. He then died in Lucifer's arms. Enraged, Lucifer was about to tear the counselor apart, but Chloe held him back. With the case closed, Connor turned himself in, incriminating the counselor as the drug dealer. He would get a reduced sentence, a chance at a youth detention center, a glimmer of hope for his future. For the first time, Lucifer was utterly distraught and lost. Back at the bar, he couldn't resist questioning God. Whether sinner or saint, those who break God's rules fall to hell. Those who comply still lose. No one can win. What's the point of it all? Lucifer sat at the piano, playing the tune the priest had played before. Chloe arrived, empathizing with the turmoil inside Lucifer, took the priest's seat, and together they played a simple duet for 4 hands. Perhaps she and Lucifer were friends after all. Chloe's arrival can be traced back to a kiss she shared previously with her ex-husband Dan. They had agreed to have dinner together that evening, but neither of them was in the mood for deep conversation. Chloe was preoccupied with thoughts of Lucifer, and as for Dan's concerns, well, those were his own. Upon his recovery and return to the police force, Malcolm latched on to Dan, threatening to report him for firing his weapon if he didn't comply with his demands. This led Dan to steal an unclaimed handgun from the evidence room. Malcolm's wife had previously ceased his medical treatment, resulting in a 30-second death for him, which felt like an agonizing 30 years in hell. Amenadiel rescued him with the stipulation that he find a way to kill Lucifer with a gun. It was clear that Amenadiel had not given up on his mission to send Lucifer back to hell. The shadow of the bald priest's death seemed to have dissipated. Now Lucifer was tempting a curly-haired girl with strawberries, but her exclamation of "Oh my God" at their delicious taste completely turned his hormones off because he didn't want anything to do with God at that moment. Fortunately, they were at a crime scene, which gave Chloe the excuse to pull away the childish and irresponsible man. This time, a renowned Mexican restaurant's head chef was found dead in a supermarket, much to Lucifer's dismay, as he would never again enjoy the authentic Mexican dishes that he so loved. The coroner determined that the chef died of poisoning, with the poison taking effect about 90 minutes after ingestion, right around the time he had breakfast at his own restaurant. The chef was known to have a foul temper, making all his employees suspects, and the restaurant had to be searched for any remaining poison. The staff of the restaurant looked up to the chef as a father figure, which intrigued Lucifer due to the classic patricide storyline. Chloe warned Lucifer not to project his own family and emotional issues onto the case, but she herself was soon confronted by her own family drama. Chloe's mother, the famous actress, showed up at the restaurant unannounced, claiming to be Chloe's sister, although her youthful appearance did give her some credibility. Compared to the serious and stoic Chloe, her mother was lively and enthusiastic, hitting it off with Lucifer. Chloe couldn't wait to get rid of her mother, who in just a short time decided on a family dinner and invited Lucifer to join them. It seemed that Chloe and her mother's relationship hadn't always been good. Back to the case details. The testimonies from the staff were all similar. The head chef was volatile and extremely harsh on employees who made mistakes, having conflicts with almost everyone, yet they all revered him as a father figure, except for his son named Junior, who had worked at the restaurant but couldn't stand his father's oppression and the shadow he cast, feeling he could never surpass or please him, leading to his rebellious departure and self-exile. He had only returned the night before. Lucifer found this fascinating as it mirrored his own celestial story. He delightedly set out to uncover Junior's true desires, bluntly asking what had brought him back all of a sudden. Junior replied he just wanted to have one more meal with his dad, which was disappointingly mundane for Lucifer. Junior revealed that he had finally had a peaceful breakfast with his father that day, with the same dishes they used to enjoy together. They had even planned to meet again that evening, but the news of his father's death reached Junior first. Junior was temporarily out of the spotlight, and he did not have any rights to inherit the restaurant. This cast suspicion on the sous chef, who had prepared the father and son's breakfast and who swore her undying devotion to the head chef. The sous chef vehemently denying any involvement in the poisoning. Chloe received the autopsy report, which stated that the cause of death for the head chef was a combination of mercury and heroin. Just as they were about to check the sous chef for needle marks, indicative of heroin use, the sous chef spewed a mouthful of blood onto Lucifer's expensive shirt and collapsed. Poisoned as well, the sous chef was rushed to the hospital for a stomach wash. Lucifer had no choice but to change into a t-shirt, which he felt significantly detracted from his usual style. Lucifer still suspected Junior was the killer. Meanwhile, Dan brought in a new suspect, a blonde who used to work as a waitress at the restaurant. She had been fired a year earlier and had been arrested twice for drug possession. She had also recently had an altercation with the two chefs at the restaurant. Dan brought this information to Chloe and was roped into attending the family dinner that evening to help lighten the mood. Chloe knew dealing with her mother on her own would be quite a challenge. The detective duo then headed to the waitress's house. Lucifer barged in and discovered not only drugs but also Junior's backpack, suggesting a close relationship between the two. Initially, Chloe disagreed with entering the residence without a warrant, but since they were already inside, they decided to search the place thoroughly. While Lucifer's mood was originally good, a sudden exclamation of "Oh my God" from the next room set him off, a reminder of his complicated celestial issues. Chloe found his reaction childish, while Lucifer complained that Chloe couldn't understand the headache of having conflicts with a parent. Chloe didn't see eye to eye with this perspective, thinking that her mother was far from a model mother, self-centered and childish, constantly trying to doll up Chloe and send her to auditions. While Chloe vented, they searched for evidence and found a small bag of heroin hidden behind a painting. Under questioning, the waitress revealed she was in a relationship with Junior and had recently sought the head chef's blessing for their relationship. But the head chef had refused, and on the day of the murder, only Junior had gone to meet his father, while the waitress met with her probation officer, leaving her with no opportunity to commit the crime. This only increased the suspicion on Junior, and Chloe issued a warrant for his arrest. Suddenly, they received a call revealing that Chloe's mother was at home, fussing over Trixie, dressing her up extravagantly in hopes of using her to gain an advantage at an audition. Chloe despised this manipulative tactic, believing children should have a normal childhood, not be used as tools by adults. After a heated argument, they realized Trixie had disappeared. Trixie hated it when adults fought, so she went to Lucifer's bar to seek refuge. To her, Lucifer was a friend, but Lucifer wasn't there at the time. Only Maze was tending the bar. Maze was also in a bad mood, feeling abandoned by Lucifer and unable to return to hell. Maze had sought counseling from Dr. Linda, who advised her to make friends and integrate into the world. Initially resistant, Maze eventually warmed up to the idea, and to her surprise, she found a kindred spirit in the precocious Trixie. The two struck up an unlikely friendship. Meanwhile, Lucifer was staked out at the waitress's house waiting for Junior. He expected to hear Junior boast about killing his father, reveling in the freedom from his temperamental dad. However, when Junior finally spoke to Lucifer, he said that he hadn't killed his father and that he wasn't happy after his father's death. He just felt sad and heartbroken, despite the many difficulties his father had caused him. At the dinner party hosted by Chloe's mother, Lucifer brought along Junior as a chef. After leaving his father, Junior had traveled to India, where he adopted a vegetarian diet. So now he prepared a carefully crafted vegetarian feast for dinner. But the dinner conversation was far more interesting than the meal itself. Chloe only trusted the evidence and still suspected Junior of killing his father. Lucifer blurted out Chloe's complaints about her own mother and pointed out that she would rather get back together with her ex-husband than perform a hormone yoga session with him. The tumultuous atmosphere made Junior feel like he was back in the days of living with his father, the head chef. Despite their many arguments, the pressure his father had put on him as a chef had shaped who he was. Junior seemed to find peace within himself and wished for reconciliation with his father. His words moved Chloe, and she began to believe that Junior was not the murderer. She went back to focusing on the case itself. The suspect list was narrowed down to 3. The waitress didn't have the time. Junior wasn't the killer, so it could only be the sous chef who had been poisoned. Her poisoning was likely self-inflicted. As long as she controlled the dosage, a stomach wash would be all that was needed, and there would be no danger to her life. Then the hospital called. The sous chef had forcibly discharged herself. Lucifer and Chloe caught her in the restaurant trying to recover the hidden drugs. It turns out the sous chef was the real murderer of the head chef, but it was an accidental death. She intended to kill Junior, who she felt didn't deserve to inherit the restaurant from such a talented chef and mentor. When Junior returned and reconciled with his father, she felt Junior wasn't worthy of the inheritance. So she planned to poison him, but didn't expect that Junior had become vegetarian. To avoid wasting food, the head chef ate the meat from his son's plate, inadvertently taking the poison intended for his son. The sous chef tried to escape and set the restaurant on fire. They caught her, but the restaurant was destroyed. Junior wasn't discouraged. He decided to carry on his father's legacy and become a great chef. He planned to build his own restaurant on the site of the old one. It would be a very good beginning. The scene shifts to a tranquil night when Maze found her way back to Dr. Linda, and the feeling of befriending Trixie was so rewarding that she decided to continue her friendship with this grown-up human. Meanwhile, Chloe went home and reconciled with her mother, and even texted her ex-husband to discuss the possibility of getting back together. However, the reply from Dan was a firm disagreement. As it turned out, Dan had learned that Malcolm planned to use the unregistered gun to kill Lucifer. Despite not being fond of Lucifer himself, Dan didn't condone such an action. So he decided to stop being threatened by Malcolm and was prepared to face the consequences, even if it meant confessing to his own wrongdoings. But before he could act, Malcolm knocked Dan out and tied him up like an adult toy in a basement. When Chloe's conciliatory text came through, Malcolm replied on Dan's behalf, rejecting her hormone advances. A dejected Chloe drank her sorrows and sought to seduce Lucifer to vent her frustrations. But surprisingly, Lucifer turned her down even when she threw her sexy body at him. Chloe fell asleep in Lucifer's arms, and he couldn't help but exclaim, "Oh God," even though he had issues with his godfather. A hungover Chloe wakes up to find herself naked in Lucifer's smelly bed, but Lucifer did indeed resist taking advantage of her sexy body last night. It was Chloe who had stripped off all her clothes and crawled into bed to sleep. Lucifer had spent the whole night contemplating why he had suddenly rejected her when not so long ago he was trying to persuade her to sleep with her, and he even felt a bit excited about it. Chloe frantically denies any intimacy, and Lucifer doesn't mind teasing her, saying she snored like a naked piggy the previous night. Lucifer gets dressed and ready to leave, while Maze, feeling slighted, attempts to make amends. But he remains as unyielding as ever. Los Angeles is never short on homicide cases. Right on the heels of Chloe's departure, the next crime scene awaited. The victim, who is a philanthropist named Tim, had been shot in the chest. All his valuables were stolen, and the murder took place at the foundation he established to help the homeless and the poor. The body was discovered by a volunteer at the foundation, and at the scene was also a vagrant. Tim used to be an NBA star, living a playboy lifestyle, but post-retirement, he turned over a new leaf and devoted himself to charity work. Hearing this, Lucifer remarked that the victim was quite similar to him. Before his death, Tim was organizing a fundraising event. Now, with him gone, his wife and assistant were devastated, and the original venue for the event was no longer viable. Lucifer offered his nightclub for free to host the event. Chloe was dumbfounded. This was not the Lucifer she knew. Never had she seen him so eager to help others. Moreover, his focus was completely off the case, not even employing his magic of uncovering people's true desires. Lucifer felt that by refusing Chloe the night before, he was doing a good deed and was quite thrilled about it. Yet now, helping with the fundraiser didn't bring him the same excitement. So he paid a visit to Dr. Linda, who explained that Lucifer was treating good deeds as a new toy, a novelty that naturally loses its thrill after a few plays. Soon after, Lucifer and Chloe tracked down the vagrant, who had only taken Tim's wallet and valuables after his death. Inside the wallet was a mysterious key card. The vagrant was not the murderer and justified his theft, claiming Tim wouldn't have minded him taking the items. Hearing that Tim was willing to help the homeless, Lucifer promptly stripped off his Prada suit and handed it over, quipping that, "It seems the devil really does wear Prada." But this act of kindness didn't bring him the joy it once did. Chloe, seeking to further dampen Lucifer's spirits, refused to let him, now a naked man, into her car. Previously, Lucifer was the one who suspected everyone of being less than savory. This time, it was Chloe who suspected Tim might be a hypocrite with potential enemies. His wife was also a possible suspect. A bald lawyer intercepted Chloe's questioning, defending the philanthropic couple, insisting they couldn't be the killers. Instead, he pointed to the volunteer who had recently argued with Tim. The volunteer confessed to a minor quarrel the previous night and discovered the body when he came to apologize. He also mentioned that Tim and his wife were only a model couple in front of the cameras, and it had been a long time since he had been home. Chloe suspected Tim might be repeating his old ways, possibly having an affair. That key card could have been for a secret rendezvous with a lover. To gather more information, Lucifer took the place of Tim's wife at a dinner with donors. The donors were wealthy, idle socialites looking for excitement, making it the perfect opportunity for Lucifer to charm the crowd. As he serenaded them, the ladies were utterly delighted. However, the assistant lost his cool, feeling that this reflected poorly on Tim. It turns out Tim was a gay man, married to his wife in a fake marriage, which she knew about even before the marriage. They had a contractual arrangement, really more partners in business than in life. The assistant was actually Tim's true love. Before his untimely death, Tim had sent the assistant a photograph to keep safe. While Chloe was at home pondering the significance of the photograph, the bald lawyer came with a bald warning. He adamantly claimed that Tim, his wife, and he himself were good people. He threatened the police with legal action if they continued to suspect him without evidence. This only fueled Chloe's determination as she grew more suspicious of the wife or the lawyer. She went to discuss the case with Lucifer, but he was preoccupied with the fundraising event, much to Chloe's disappointment. The assistant helped Chloe check Tim's call history, and the last text revealed a location in Haiti. That was Tim's secret trip, and the key card was from a hotel there. The foundation was working on a charity project there to buy land and build schools. According to the timeline, the construction was nearly complete. Chloe deduced that the empty lot in the photograph was likely in Haiti. Someone had been embezzling funds by falsifying accounts and claiming the project's progress was on track. In the photo, the bald lawyer and Tim were smiling sincerely while doing good deeds. To find evidence of the wife's embezzlement, they needed the bald lawyer. He managed the foundation's finances and was also the personal lawyer to Tim and his wife. Checking the accounts would be easy for him. As the fundraiser was about to start, Lucifer was confronted by an unwelcome guest, Malcolm. Not wanting to return to hell, Malcolm was ready to follow Aminadil's orders to kill Lucifer in exchange, with the scapegoat being Officer Dan, who was now trapped in the basement. But Dan secretly stashed a sharp weapon while Malcolm was distracted. Lucifer, now fearful of guns, had to resort to a war of words. He challenged Malcolm what deal he had made with Aminadil. Malcolm might be a showman, and he voluntarily explained the situation. If he didn't kill Lucifer, Aminadil would send him back to hell. As an exchange, Lucifer took out a coin he often fiddled with, which allowed free travel between Earth and Hell. With this coin, even if one died, they could leave Hell. So Malcolm took the coin, sparing Lucifer. It's rare to see such a cowardly devil like Lucifer from Hell. Still in panic, Lucifer encountered Tim's wife. It turned out she was the murderer, planning to flee right after the fundraiser. Lucifer saw through her plan but wasn't particularly bothered. However, the wife took drastic action, shooting Lucifer multiple times in the chest. Meanwhile, Dan had freed himself using a hidden sharp object and stumbled into Lucifer's home, only to find his seemingly lifeless body. Before Dan could grieve, Lucifer gasped and stood up. He was unharmed. Dan didn't ponder the situation. He was just relieved Lucifer wasn't dead and his timely arrival had paid off, but Malcolm had already been there. Lucifer tidied himself up, ready to confront Tim's wife, who was hosting the fundraiser. When Lucifer appeared unscathed, he announced that the best way to honor Tim was to catch his murderer. Sure enough, Chloe arrived to arrest Tim's wife. It turns out the bald lawyer had found evidence in the accounts of the wife misappropriating funds. Using his magic, Lucifer coerced her to confess that she killed her husband Tim because he wasted all the money on charity. With that, the evidence was complete, and Chloe was grateful to Lucifer for his help. Lucifer suddenly felt the same thrill of rejecting Chloe. Perhaps charity wasn't the main point, but rather his relationship with Chloe. Afterward, Lucifer was in a good mood, even initiating a conversation with Maze. However, for Maze to earn his forgiveness, she had to atone for her deeds, which was perfect timing since she'd just fallen into intimacy with Aminadiel, allowing her to keep an eye on him for Lucifer. But now, the big question was why Lucifer's invulnerability to weapons and death seemed to come and go. He decided to test it out and brought a dagger to Chloe's house. Chloe had received a message that someone anonymously donated a large sum of money to Tim's foundation. It had to be Lucifer. She began to believe that Lucifer was truly charitable and thanked him for making the murderer confess. She felt differently about Lucifer, who sometimes made her feel vulnerable. Secretly, Lucifer cut his hand with the dagger, and to his surprise, he bled. It seems that Chloe could make him vulnerable too. The scene shifts to a girl in the white dress lying blindfolded on the altar, while the priest plunges a dagger into her chest. This is not a ritual murder, but it seems it's merely a role-playing game. The priest then carries the girl indoors, claiming it's a true sacrifice to Lucifer. As screams echo, he stabs down with a real dagger this time. On the other side, since discovering that Chloe makes him vulnerable, Lucifer had been hiding on the top floor of the bar for 3 weeks, letting Maze attack him with different materials, all without harm. Maze then throws at him a demonic dagger forged in hell, scaring Lucifer into catching it instantly. This thing is not ordinary. It can definitely harm angels and demons. Lucifer suspects Chloe's ability to make him bleed was caused by Amenadiel, but Maze thinks not. Lucifer doesn't care and orders Maze to send Amenadiel back to heaven. Chloe comes knocking since Lucifer hasn't harassed her for 3 weeks, which feels odd to her, but now she needs him for a case. To ensure safety, Lucifer keeps a 10-meter distance from Chloe at all times. Outside the crime scene cinema, a crowd shouts about Satan's presence and God's arrival. Among them is a fraudulent priest who has seen Lucifer's true face. He yells even louder upon Lucifer's arrival. The white-dressed sacrifice girl lies in the center of a pentagram with "Hail Lucifer" carved behind her. The real Lucifer finds this disgusting. He always ends up paying for the misdeeds of Satan's fanatics, which have nothing to do with him. The fraudulent priest rushes in, blaming Lucifer, but is chased out by Malcolm, who thinks he's on Lucifer's side and tries to ingratiate himself. Lucifer wants nothing to do with him. Dan wants to talk to Chloe about Malcolm, but she gives him no chance. She's still upset about being rejected, and it's business time. Personal matters must wait. The marks near the wound on the back of the white-dressed girl could be from the knife handle, with subcutaneous implants on her arm. Not many places do such implants. So Dan and Malcolm set out to find where the implants are done, while Chloe and Lucifer talk to the victim's father. Usually, Lucifer catches a ride with Chloe, but this time he rushes off after getting the address, as if Chloe were contagious. But it turns out the girl and her father are not close. The father doesn't even know there's a secret room in the house dedicated to Lucifer, containing items and a book titled Church of Dark Deeds, with expressions of love and a word, and possibly a name, Corazon. Dan calls, having found the implant place. The white-dressed girl and a boy named Corazon were there recently. Dan is then harassed by Malcolm, who's now fearless after his deal with Lucifer, even with Amenadiel's threats. Chloe toys with the implant at the police station, unable to piece together its meaning. Lucifer, with his extensive knowledge, assembles the Latin name Son of the Goat, which is another name for Lucifer. Frustrated, Lucifer exclaims that he never understood how he got associated with a goat. In fact, this is Amenadiel's doing. The legend goes that fallen angels became hideous upon falling to earth, with Lucifer turned into a goat-like demon. That's why many portrayals of Satan are of a muscular goat. But the Bible records that among the fallen angels, only Lucifer retained his beauty. The goat-like appearance was actually Amenadiel's, just to annoy Lucifer, as he confessed to Maze himself. Truly, it's a tale of love and rivalry between brothers. Returning to the case, Chloe, following the Latin name, stumbled upon the website of the Church of Dark Deeds. She promptly discovered the address of the so-called church gathering. Lucifer had already taken off, leaving Chloe dumbfounded, not knowing why he hid from her. But Lucifer was unable to come up with a better excuse. Since the gathering was not open to the public, Lucifer avoided Chloe and used his true form to scare off the doorman, striding confidently inside. The church was holding a memorial for the white-dressed girl, which turned into a devil-worshipping session. As a goat-headed Satan appeared, Lucifer charged in and confronted the crowd. The priest, seeing the police, fled into the inner chamber, with Chloe and Lucifer in pursuit. Using his power, Lucifer coerced the priest to reveal that he wanted to eliminate the creep who killed the girl in the white dress and put an end to this fake Lucifer sacrifice scheme. It turned out the priest was not the murderer, just someone tired of the adolescent gathering. The priest hinted that the girl's boyfriend, Corazon, was a suspect, often talking about making a real sacrifice to worship Lucifer. The Church of Dark Deeds used retractable fake daggers for sacrifices, but now their real dagger had been stolen. Lucifer and Chloe examined the satanic paintings inside. Chloe still believed that Lucifer compared himself to Satan because he wanted to be invincible and supreme, and because he felt everyone was out to get him. Lucifer didn't deny it, saying everyone is out to get him, but only angels can harm him. He confessed that he felt vulnerable by Chloe's side and wondered if this attractive policewoman was an angel. He couldn't help but reach for Chloe's back, searching for wings. Previously afraid that being close to Chloe would hurt him, Lucifer now wished they could be inseparable. How twisted he is. Lucifer followed Chloe home, childishly waking up Trixie by throwing toys and then bribing her with money to learn more about Chloe's uniqueness. But Trixie had little useful information. Chloe found Lucifer's behavior odd and was willing to do anything to get him back to normal. Without any courtesy, Lucifer had Chloe undressed to reveal a smooth back with no trace of wings. He suspected Chloe was an angel sent to kill him. Exasperated, Chloe urged Lucifer to stop his paranoid delusions. Coincidentally, news about the prime suspect, Corazon, came through. The pair rushed to the scene to meet with Officer Dan, only to find that Corazon had died and had become a sacrifice to Satan. Dan kept asking Lucifer what he felt about this, but Lucifer only felt that such crimes were truly more devilish than the devil himself. The killer had arranged the red paint at the scene into a morning star, suggesting that the crime might have been directed at Lucifer himself. Dan suspected that Lucifer's frequent proclamations of being Satan might have inspired someone's misguided worship and sacrifice. Lucifer was furious, tired of always being blamed whenever something bad happened. He insisted that as the Lord of Hell, his role was to punish sinners, not to entice them to kill. Chloe pulled Dan aside, but since the case possibly involved Lucifer, he had to recuse himself and couldn't participate in the investigation. Chloe thought that the criminal might harm Lucifer, so making him step back was a form of protection. However, Lucifer felt that Chloe also suspected him of being an evil wrongdoer. In a huff, Lucifer woke up Dr. Linda in the middle of the night to vent that Chloe had lost trust in him, fearing she might have been manipulated to harm him. The psychological counseling session didn't go well, and Lucifer left in a rage, getting no useful advice. On the way, he was stopped by the fraudulent priest, who convinced that Lucifer was the murderer. Lucifer, in anger, lifted the priest into the air, but it was Malcolm who arrived to defuse the situation. Chloe had Malcolm protect Lucifer, worrying that a madman might hurt him. At the crime scene, Chloe found a cufflink that seemed to have the letter M on it. After analysis, the cufflink had no fingerprints or skin tissue. The video of Lucifer's altercation with the fraudulent priest went viral. In the video, Lucifer's cufflink was intact, but the priest's was missing one, and the priest's name started with a W. Seeing that, Chloe quickly set off with Dan, reasoning that such a fanatical believer might kill a Satan worshiper. At the bar, Lux, Malcolm tried to get close to Lucifer, awkwardly expressing his admiration, but accidentally revealed fingers stained with red paint. Police would wear gloves at a crime scene, so the only way Malcolm could have gotten paint on his hands was if he was the killer. Lucifer thought that Malcolm seemed crazy, who was still excitedly talking about the thrill of his crime and had even planned a scapegoat, the fraudulent priest. Lucifer was enraged, ready to severely punish Malcolm when Amenadiel appeared. It turned out that after a romantic encounter, Maze had stabbed Amenadiel, who hadn't hurt her but had come to settle scores with Lucifer. Malcolm took the opportunity to sneak away. The brothers blamed each other, each saying that it was the other's fault that they ended up with such a twisted individual as Malcolm. Special effects would surely be expensive, for an angel and Satan were wrestling their muscles up close. Amenadiel's anger stemmed only from his feelings for Maze, unaware that Maze was just a pawn for Lucifer. Lucifer, on the other hand, believed Chloe could neutralize his immortality and must be Amenadiel's pawn. The two men argued and fought until Maze, unable to bear it, pulled out a weapon, urging them to stop their bickering. If they really wanted to kill each other, they should use her demonic blades, which would be much more convenient. Unfortunately, all of Lucifer's treasured wines were destroyed in the fray. Chloe and Dan hurried to the Lux bar after someone reported seeing the fraudulent priest seeking Lucifer. Chloe wanted to reconcile with Lucifer, but instead, she stumbled upon the fraudulent priest's corpse with a gunshot wound in the forehead. She had to aim a gun at Lucifer and announce his arrest. Poor Lucifer felt so aggrieved. He hadn't done anything wrong, but always seemed to end up taking the blame. He was targeted by bystanders who thought he should be held responsible for a recent satanic sacrificial ritual, which left him seething with anger. It turns out everything was Malcolm's doing. He had planned to use the fraudulent priest as a scapegoat, but Lucifer saw through Malcolm's scheme. With no choice left, Malcolm killed the fraudulent priest and left him at the Lux bar. Lucifer knew nothing and was clueless, yet he was surrounded by the police, and even Chloe drew her gun. Lucifer was somewhat speechless, but Chloe trusted the evidence. Seeing the trembling hands of the police officers holding guns, Chloe, fearing for Lucifer's safety, preemptively ordered him to surrender. Her intention was to protect Lucifer, but he couldn't understand her intentions, feeling betrayed. He thought even Chloe, like everyone else, was ready to blame him for everything. Lucifer found everything ridiculously funny and kept taunting the other officers, wishing for a quick death. A nervous young officer fired a shot, but Lucifer disappeared. It was Amenadiel who had rescued him, carrying him away. Lucifer warned him not to speak of this to anyone. Anything could be lost, but not the King of Hell's pride. Previously, Amenadiel had done everything to get Lucifer back to hell. Now, with Lucifer despairing of humanity and Chloe present, Lucifer could have had his wish granted if he were shot. So Lucifer was confused why Amenadiel had changed his mind. After the fight, Amenadiel's mind had cooled down. He indeed wanted Lucifer to return to hell, but not by harming humans. Amenadiel acknowledged that reviving Malcolm, a perverse element, was his mistake. He admitted to overlooking the bigger picture, but now he was lucid and needed to make amends. He wanted to find Malcolm and send him back to hell, asking Lucifer for help. Lucifer agreed. Amenadiel brought Lucifer back to his therapy office, which is right next to Dr. Linda's place. As luck would have it, Dr. Linda popped in to visit and found Lucifer lying on the couch. She jokingly accused Amenadiel of stealing her patient, but the misunderstanding was quickly cleared up. The brothers then sat in Dr. Linda's therapy room and shared their tumultuous history. Despite one being an angel and the other Satan, they both got a scolding from Dr. Linda, who has a knack for seeing through to the core of human nature. However, she also provided them with a revelation. Malcolm is desperate to get away and would certainly need a new identity. Lucifer tracked down the guy who had once created a fake ID for him and learned that Malcolm had visited him, offering $100,000 for a new identity. Malcolm would likely turn to his old friend for the money. Lucifer thought to get information from Dan. The Lux bar was swarming with cops, but Malcolm sneaked in, pretending to have just arrived. Dan, oblivious to the fact that Malcolm was the real culprit, didn't suspect a thing and recounted the events that had just unfolded. Hearing that Lucifer had escaped, Malcolm panicked. When he saw the knife among the evidence collected by the officers, he instinctively knew it was special. He picked out Maze's demonic blade and quietly claimed it for himself, feeling it could protect him and possibly harm Lucifer. Chloe, who didn't believe Lucifer was the murderer, laid out the facts to convince her ex-husband, Dan. When Dan saw the gun that killed the fraudulent priest, he told Chloe it must have Lucifer's fingerprints on it, but he believed Lucifer was being framed. Chloe hadn't expected Dan to trust her so quickly, yet Dan knew it was the best moment for honesty. Dan confessed everything to Chloe, from the shooting incident on Palm Street to helping Malcolm steal guns and Malcolm's plan to kill Lucifer. Naturally, Chloe was furious at Dan for his ridiculous actions, but gave him a chance to make amends by finding a way to prove Lucifer's innocence while she went to find Lucifer herself. Chloe asked Maze for Lucifer's whereabouts. Initially, Maze didn't want to help, but when she heard it was to clear Lucifer's name, she pointed Chloe towards Malcolm and decided to follow along. Both of them learned from Malcolm's wife about his plans to flee. Right after Chloe hung up the phone with Dan, he was at the police precinct when Lucifer and Amenadiel walked in. Their stories matched perfectly, and it didn't take long to find out that Malcolm's friend was a drug dealer and one of Malcolm's former associates. Their hideout was in a brewery, and both parties were headed there. At that moment, Malcolm was negotiating with his friend, trying to con him out of $100,000. The arrival of Lucifer and Amenadiel distracted the friend's goons, giving Malcolm the perfect chance to grab the cash. While Amenadiel wanted to use his divine powers, Lucifer suggested a good old-fashioned brawl. The Celestial brothers took on the henchmen, and after dealing with the lackeys, they split up to search for Malcolm. But Malcolm ambushed Amenadiel, stabbing him in the kidney with Maze's demonic blade. Lucifer wanted to attend to Amenadiel's wounds, but Maze arrived just in time to take over, urging Lucifer to pursue Malcolm. Chloe accidentally ran into Malcolm, who dropped the money bag and fled for his shitty life. When Lucifer met Chloe, he found her supportive and trusting of his innocence, begging him not to resist arrest, as Dan had already found a way to exonerate him. Maze took Amenadiel back to Lux, where he seemed destined to die, but she pulled out one of Lucifer's feathers. The divine power within completely healed Amenadiel. Meanwhile, Lucifer was brought to the police station, where Dan's plan for his exoneration was quite simple. Admit to the crime of killing the fraudulent priest, as the gun belonged to him and was stolen from the evidence room by Malcolm. Lucifer couldn't believe his ears, and Chloe, witnessing Dan's rare moment of glory, got a call from Malcolm. He had taken Trixie hostage, threatening Chloe to bring the $100,000 alone for the ransom. If the police or Lucifer were informed, Trixie's life would be in danger. Out of concern for her daughter, Chloe had no choice but to comply. Sensing something was off, Lucifer reluctantly agreed to Chloe's pleas not to follow and cause a disturbance. At the designated location, Chloe hugged Trixie, instructing her to hide immediately and not be found. Knowing that Malcolm wouldn't let her off easily, Chloe prepared for the worst. But Lucifer arrived just in time. As Chloe took cover, Lucifer tried to persuade Malcolm, only to be shot in the stomach. It was rare to see a villain with such little talk. Although his cause was wrong, one had to admire his decisiveness. However, because Chloe was nearby, Lucifer's immortality was nullified, and he fell, experiencing the feeling of death like a mortal. As he lay dying, Lucifer began to pray to God to protect Chloe, saying he would become the son he wanted him to be. In a daze, Lucifer found himself back in familiar territory, hell itself. Something felt amiss, and as ashes swirled around him, a door opened. Lucifer cried out like a giant baby in disbelief, only to play dead on the spot. Sure enough, the Lord of Hell had returned to his domain. Malcolm was about to shoot Chloe when Lucifer made a startling appearance. In the moment of Malcolm's shock, Chloe seized the opportunity and shot him down. Malcolm had hoped to escape hell using a demonic coin, but Lucifer had already reclaimed it. In front of a stunned Malcolm, Lucifer burned the coin to ashes, a one-time ticket to hell that meant Malcolm wouldn't be coming back this time. With that, the case came to a close. Lucifer then stirred Amenadiel from his sleep. Lucifer shared with him that their father, God, had responded to a soul's escape from hell, and now he must remain on earth to recapture the escapee. Amenadiel saw this as a minor case, but Lucifer was visibly shaken, which raised Amenadiel's suspicions. He asked who has escaped from hell, to which Lucifer replied it's his mother. In the end, let's do a brief character spotlight. First up is Officer Dan. Initially, he was constantly belittled by Lucifer. Despite his lingering love for Chloe, he was unable to reconcile with her. His reveal as a corrupt cop was shocking. Regardless, Dan was indeed corrupt. But when his fellow dirty cop Malcolm threatened Chloe, Dan chose to shoot him, resulting in the Palm Street shooting. Dan wasn't heartless. He desperately tried to warn Lucifer about the impending danger, and eventually confessed his dark past to the police, sacrificing himself to clear Lucifer's name. Finally, let's talk about Lucifer. Exiled into hell by God to punish sinners, Lucifer grew angry as humans blamed all their sins on devilish temptations. This slander and defamation led him to question the purpose God had for him in hell, so he rebelled and came to earth to indulge in pleasure. Los Angeles, with its intoxicating luxury, outshone hell by leagues. Lucifer found himself drawn to the detective Chloe, who was immune to his charms. She pursued the truth of each case with integrity, and Lucifer, joining her investigations, grew closer to her. In Chloe's presence, his immortality was nullified, rendering him mortal, which intrigued him greatly. As friends, Lucifer bargained his loyalty to God in exchange for Chloe's safety. But by the end of Season 1, Chloe's identity has not yet been revealed. More intriguing is the fact that Lucifer's mother has escaped hell. God has asked Lucifer to stay on Earth and bring her back for unknown reasons. The puzzles needed to be solved in the following season. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.